Hello, everyone. Today we will be discussing lead nurturing and referral systems in the insurance industry. So welcome, Maarten, and welcome, Fivaz. Louis is joining us from APBCO Brokers, and he's our special guest for today. So my first question to you guys are, Louis, what is your background and how did it all started?
My background has been in insurance for the last 30 years. I've been with a company called APBCO for the past 28 years. Grown up from being just a normal broker right through the ranks up to the point where I'm director now for the Cape region and also for Centurion region. APBCO have been a company in the market for the past 40 years. I think we'll celebrate our 40th birthday next year.
Wow.
And yes, we were very prosperous in the short-term insurance industry, focusing on a specific type of client. We always say that our first client is still with APBCO after this 40 years, and we're very proud of that.
So, Louis, in terms of the system, can you tell us a little bit more about what this specific system does?
If I can go back 3-4 years, like we all do, is we start off with an Excel spreadsheet and we try to manage referrals on an Excel spreadsheet. And what we did, and the need in the APBCO side, was to increase our referrals from specific sources, and also to create a space where we can do it with structure, with honesty, with total transparency, and to make sure that everybody that's on board with the system feels that they can grow and that they can add value to the end target. So what we did was initially we were receiving referrals from sources. That referrals got to the point where we couldn't manage that anymore perfectly on the Excel spreadsheet. So I met up with Maarten through the BNI in Durbanville, and I've listened to him, and what I could hear was that he's in the game for basically taking this Excel spreadsheet and build it into a more better workflow so that everybody could get value from the system. So I met up with Maarten, and I went through the basic principles of what we did, what we want to achieve, and what the outcome must be. And yes, from there on, we sat down and we designed the whole platform. I must say I was very impressed with the way that the specification went. I can say Maarten is very good at specifications. Once he sat down with us, he immediately understood where we were aiming with this thing, immediately understood our needs, what we want to achieve, and that resulted in a very, very, very great, perfect specification. And at the end of the day, that specification is solid and everybody is on the same page, the end product is so much more better and reliable.
So Maarten, that brings me to you. What were the challenges that you faced putting this system together?
Well, I think the first thing that got me really excited about this project is when people automate things in their business, most of the time they focus on operations. Now, what Louis basically did is he had this vision for building a machine that automates marketing. And I mean, he's being very humble about it, but it's quite a feat to come up with technology and automate the marketing process. So I was very excited about it. It's something that we've never done before. We've always hoped that somebody can come up with this great idea. So they already had a system going. It was now just a matter of automating it. And I think, you know, it's something that I've never seen another company do. So a lot of it was quite groundbreaking. You know, and the devil is always in the detail. So I think we didn't just go with the first sort of draft that we had for the spec. We went backwards and forwards, you know, on various ideas before we actually started development work. So I think that was one of the biggest challenges in this specific process, is to, you know, keep going at it until we had that thing that says, okay, this system is, you know, this is the way that we think it's going to work. And even when we implemented it, it was still, you know, learning from it, because people started using it and various role players started giving their input. So we tried to stay reactive to, you know, the feedback that we got from Louis and his team and the people who were Louis also started involving other role players, external role players, and so I think that getting the feedback and sort of reacting on that was probably the thing that worked best for this specific project.
So Louis, that brings me back to you, and to quote Dr. Phil, how is this working for you?
I always said to Maarten, the biggest challenge that we had was to create a culture around the specific model, the specific way that we wanted to work. And a lot of people, if you're using the old-fashioned method of referral via like an Excel spreadsheet system, always something's creeping in there. Always somebody will say, "Listen, but I'm not satisfied. I'm not trusting. I'm not sure that this thing is working a win-win situation for both parties." And if you introduce more parties to the system, it gets a little bit confused. So back to the culture thing is that we manage over a period of 3 years. And I always say it is only because of a system, because of something tangible, something visible, something that people can start learning the process, the workflow, and they get used to that, and they build trust in that process. And so if you involve more than 1 or 2 or 3 people in a system or on a workflow, it's very important to make sure that everyone trusts that system. And through trust, you can build a culture. Through culture, you can build success. So if all the parties involved are relying on the outcome, and that outcome is benefiting all parties, then you have a winning recipe. Like any system, from the beginning onwards, you never think about the next step. You always think about a lot of things, but not to the extent that listen, yeah, you need to do this first and do that first. And what I found with Tech Genius was that they ordered or made me aware of what the next step should be. And especially if you're not in IT, you always think 3, 4, 5 steps ahead. And I think you frustrate people in that matter. So you need to sit down and make sure it's very, very drawn up specifically what you're aiming at and what you want to achieve. And there's so many outcomes. It's one thing to sit down and develop, and the other thing is to make sure that the normal behavior of people come to the fore, to make sure that the normal daily actions is built in practically into a system. And I must say, through Maarten's intervention and his leadership in that role, we got to a point over a period of 2 years that I thought, okay, listen, yeah, I think we've got it now in its basic format. We went through 2 cycles. We developed the 1 phase, and we moved over to a 2nd phase. And the reason for that was because the more people getting involved, the more reliable you want the thing, the more trustworthy you want the thing, the more practicalities got involved, and to make sure that practicalities and that behavior is built into the system.
So Louis, as everybody knows, a system like this, to develop something like that, is quite involved and could run quite costly. But in terms of your return on investment, what would you say? Was it a good choice? Was it an informed choice? Are you happy with the results?
I think first, if we can get back to that first thing in terms of cost, in terms of time, Maarten will come to you and will say to you, listen, you must know precisely where you're aiming at. So if you sit down and you start bubbling around with a lot of dreams and things that you want to introduce to a system, you're not there yet. You need to spend time on where you're aiming at. And I think if you get together and you sit down and you say, listen, I know specifically where I'm going, and Maarten can basically take that dream and make it a reality, then the cost factor will come down tremendously. So spend time on specifications, spend time on process, spend time on workflow, spend time on behavior. What will happen if I push this button? What will be the end result of that? So on the end of the day, if you take that into account, the whole cost of things come down tremendously. In terms of the return on investment, this was not clear for me in the beginning. I knew what I wanted to achieve, and I knew that if I could build a system that could set up a culture and a specific way of working, and people start using it, because this is not a admin system. It's a workflow. It is a It's a trust environment. So if I give you a referral, you must make sure that something happens with that referral. And it must go 360 degrees from when I give you the referral to contacting the client, giving feedback, make sure everything is wrapped up perfectly. If that works perfectly, and in our case, that system definitely does that, our return on investment was quickly visible. And in a question of in a space of 3 years, we managed to build up a good monthly retention of premiums to the point that we increased our expectations to much more than we had thought in the beginning.
So if I come back to you again, Louis, my last question to you is, what advice would you give to other people who would like to implement a system like that?
Don't think about cost, because if you start with cost in mind, you'll never do it. So I think make sure that you choose a trusted partner, which TechGenius is definitely one of them. I think they're very flexible in their approach, but also very structured. So you know always where you stand with them. So don't think price. Just sit down, make sure that you know where you're aiming at, get a reliable partner, make sure you get together and build that structure and that workflow together, make sure the specification is 110%, and you will be surprised by the outcome and how fast you can reach certain phases of your program if that is thought out properly from the beginning. So yeah, my advice to anyone who wants to formalize a type of workflow, typically Excel spreadsheet environment, which involves a lot of parties, I would say just sit down, make sure that you test that outside of the formal arrangement, make sure that all the little bugs and workflow processes are sorted out before you sit down and formalize it. So yes, that will be my advice.
And then Maarten, my last question to you would be, how can the system be implemented or used by other companies?
Yes, I think a lot of businesses can gain from, like Louis mentioned, building a strong trust relationship with outside parties who are actually giving referrals for your business. I think, you know, there's so much untapped potential as far as such reward programs in terms of referral are concerned. So I think, yes, I think there's massive untapped potential for many businesses out there.
If I can just come in there, I think that the advantage of making something that works for your environment and your culture, because you must remember, there's a lot of systems out there that's very organic generated. So you want something that's exclusive to you, exclusive to your work environment, exclusive to your culture. What is your people doing on an everyday basis that contributes to your success? Because you've got a brand, there's a way that you do business with your clients. And what you do is you build in this help or this workflow or this technology around your way of working, which make it much easier when you involve more people in that specific space. And I think that is what the value proposition from TechGenius is. If they can sit down with you and make sure that they can basically build that little environment for you that is specific to you, that's totally unique to your culture, I think then you're gaining ground.
That's all from me, folks. Melanie Foxcroft from MF Consulting. And join us next time for more riveting content about business automation and more systems.